angels, it's Hailey Reese and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm so excited that you are here and I hope that you are having an absolutely fantastic morning, afternoon, or night, whatever it is for you when this video finally reaches you. Today's video is a spooky one because elements of this particular experience remind me quite a bit of some of my childhood experiences, and so in that I can sympathize with the child who had this experience and the reality of the experience that would come to light as they began to investigate this terrifying haunting. Recently, I've been getting sent in and have been coming across so many hauntings where the children are the main ones experiencing the haunting. I've done a ton of videos in the past as to why children are more open to paranormal experiences and overall just the other side, but today's video is no exception. At the center of it is a beautiful little girl named Jane. So this story centers around a family of four that decided to purchase an older home with a lot of land because they wanted to expand their family business and they thought the land would be very helpful in this. The family consisted of the mom and the dad and their children, Joseph and Jane. Now, Joseph was quite a few years older than Jane, and he was just your typical older brother. He was constantly messing with Jane and doing absolutely anything he could to get under her skin. And this would really frustrate their parents, which I can completely understand because my sister and I are 4.5 years apart, and there was like a period of our lives where all we wanted to do was like argue with each other, and it drove our parents nuts. So the family was also kind of hoping that with this bigger home on this big plot of land, the two of them may have more time apart from one another. The home that they were moving in from was a smaller but newer build, and so their parents thought maybe with more space, the two of them can kind of hang out in their own sections of the property or sections of the home and leave one another alone. Now this home, as I mentioned, was an older home. So obviously off the get-go, there was kind of a creepy feeling. Jane remembers her parents telling them, listen guys, the home is gonna make weird noises. It's gonna be a little dusty, it's gonna be a little spooky until we make the house a home. They made sure to preach this to the kids so that when they saw it for the first time, they weren't shocked coming from a newer home into this big, beautiful, but older home. Now Jane remembers walking into the house and immediately feeling like they weren't alone. She actually told her parents this, but both of her parents thought the home is just big. Of course she's feeling this way. They kept saying, we just gotta make this house a home. Jane said the house was like a typical creaky old home out of like a horror film, that all the steps creaked, that when you would walk through the hallways at night to use the bathroom, you would hear every little movement, that when you're laying in bed, the walls even made strange noises. And so over time, they got quite used to the home just being strange. And actually neither Jane nor Joseph were afraid of the home. Now they moved into their new home in the wintertime, and so the two of them hadn't really seen much of the outside. It was a really, really cold winter, and they didn't spend that much time playing outdoors. They actually spent most of the winter kind of fixing up the house with their family and getting situated and settled. So when spring came, Joseph and Jane couldn't wait to go outside and start adventuring around their property. And that's when Jane really noticed for the first time the big outdoor entrance to the cellar. The way that Jane described this cellar was almost like the cellar, again, out of a horror movie. It had almost like a little hood to it, a big creaky door that you would open, and then you would proceed to go down a whole bunch of concrete stairs to a massive opening of like a cellar or like storage space, like a added basement. One day, Jane and Joseph's mother decided that she was gonna go clean up down there a little bit so that they could store some things down there that they didn't really need on the regular. And she asked Jane in particular for her help. Now, Jane said the moment that she started walking down those stairs, something felt off. She said she didn't want to take a step further to step down onto the bottom concrete floor. She didn't know why she felt this way, but she did not feel good. Jane actually started crying to her mom, saying, "I'm not going any further, I'm not stepping off of these stairs," and just wanted to pass her what her mom wanted her to bring down. Jane's mom was obviously frustrated by this, but she could understand because it was a really creepy underground cellar, and once again just tried to explain to Jane that once she cleaned it up down there and made it more of like a storage, it wouldn't feel so creepy, and that she should conquer her fears and get over them. But during this particular experience, Jane's mom did just take whatever Jane had handed to her and told Jane she could go back upstairs. That night at dinner, Joseph had caught wind that Jane did not want to set foot on the floor of the cellar. In typical older brother fashion, Joseph began making fun of Jane, saying that she was a big baby, that she needed to grow up, what is she scared of, the boogeyman, like just kind of nonsense like that, and it really hurt Jane's feelings. So, a few weeks later, when Jane's parents asked her if she could bring something down to the cellar, she decided that she was going to conquer her fear, she was going to go down those stairs, walk onto the concrete, and actually put something into the cellar in order to prove to her brother that she's not a baby, that she's completely able to conquer her fears. So Jane grabs what needs to go down to the cellar. She said she remembers opening up the cellar and standing there for a good 5 minutes before taking a deep breath and one step at a time going down into the cellar. Jane gets down to the last step and finally decides to conquer her fear and step onto the cellar floor. She steps onto the cellar floor and again has this horrible feeling, but then also decides, okay, I'm already on the floor, nothing's happened, it's not that bad. Jane proceeds to walk over and place down the item that she was set to bring downstairs, and just as she was about to turn around, the cellar door slams and it locks because their cellar locks from the outside. Jane goes running up the stairs and starts freaking out. She's banging on the door, she's crying, she doesn't know what's going on. She said she actually felt like she was going to die of a heart attack. And that's when she heard a woman start humming. Jane looks around and sees a woman crawling. Woo! I can't even picture it. Crawling towards her across the floor, humming, staring straight at her. Jane said she was literally pressed up against the cellar door, banging and screaming for her parents as the woman continues to climb and crawl her way up the stairs, staring right at Jane. And when the woman lifts her head to look into Jane's eyes, Jane said she knew right away the woman looked dead. Looking into the woman's eyes, she didn't question for 1 minute if a woman was living down there. She didn't question for 1 minute if this was like a prank down there. She knew that this was someone that was dead, and she started screaming even louder. At this point, Jane's mother opens up the cellar door and Jane flies into her mom's arms, telling her about the woman, but when Jane looks back down the stairs, there is no woman there. The woman that she saw is completely gone. Jane's telling her mom that the woman in the basement locked her in there. She's bawling her eyes out, she's freaking out, and that's when Jane's mom proceeds to tell her that it was Joseph. Joseph thought it would be funny to lock Jane down in the cellar and play some sort of dumb sibling joke on her. But Jane kept explaining to her parents for weeks after this that there was a woman in the cellar who crawled up the stairs, looked into her soul, and Jane said, she's dead. She's dead. Mommy, daddy, she's dead. She was freaking out over this. Now for months, Jane never went down to the cellar. And don't worry, Jane's brother did get into a lot of trouble for that, but what really upset Jane the most wasn't that Joseph had locked her down in the cellar. It was that her gut instinct of something being wrong down there was true, that there was a woman down in that cellar. Now months went on and Jane could never shake the feeling that beneath their home there was some sort of creepy woman down there. But it wasn't until Jane's mother would have an experience with the woman that they would start to believe her and start digging a lot deeper. Jane's mother was down there one evening organizing, and she was completely home alone when she started to hear what sounded like humming. She said that she was a little bit confused because it sounded like a woman's humming, but her children weren't home, and there was nobody that lived even close by for them to be around, if that makes any sense. but then she said in her peripheral vision, she saw what looked like a woman right next to her staring into her soul in the most sinister way. She said that when she turned her head, the woman was completely gone, but she knew what she saw and she ran up the stairs. Now, after this incident, they started to think back on Jane's whole experience down in the cellar with the woman. And that's when they decided to dig a little deeper. Come to find out, years and years and years before this family had ever moved into that home, a woman lived in that home who was known in the town for potentially being an evil woman. But she one day mysteriously died down in the cellar. Now, nobody knows why she was considered evil or why she was feared by those in the town, but it was confirmed that a woman had died down in that cellar. Now, in a lot of family hauntings, the families typically choose to move out of the home, but in this particular experience, Jane's family just decided to board off and block off the cellar. They took everything out of the cellar and decided, hey, we've only ever seen the woman down in the cellar. Our home feels homey, our home feels fine. So it was decided that nobody would go down to the cellar. But years and years and years later, they would eventually sell the home. Not to do with a haunting, but just to do with the family moving. And to this day, Jane wonders if the next people ventured down to the cellar and what their experiences were, because her family knows that cellar is 100% haunted by a woman that nobody knows what her true intentions were in life, and especially not in death. What do you guys think of this particular experience? What do you make of it? You guys always have the most interesting theories, so I would seriously love to know down in the comment section below what you guys think of this particular experience. Do you think that it really did happen? Do you think that maybe after Jane's childhood imagination, her mom's imagination ran wild? Or do you think that there was a woman in that cellar? I would love to know down in the comment section below. And what do you think her intentions were? I know I'm asking you a million questions now, but I haven't been able to answer what I think. So I'm very curious to talk back and forth with you guys on some theories. But that is basically it for today's video. If you guys are new to my channel or you are just not yet subscribed but you do enjoy my content, I would seriously love it if you go ahead and click that subscribe button, and please give this video a big thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Remember, my loves, to do all things with kindness, and until next time, I love you.